Hey guys, Sarthik here from Code to Create, and this is our fourth video in our Java lecture series. Today we're going to be covering our first kind of control statement, which is the if statement. So a quick review of what we learned last video. Last video we learned what booleans are, and they're a type of variable that holds the value of either true or false, and booleans come hand in hand with a thing called logic statements. Logic statements are expressions that get evaluated are expressions that when evaluated get a value to either true or false when comparing two values. You can compare values are equal to each other, not equal to each other, greater than to each other, less than each other, etc. Control statements are lines of code that disrupt the normal line-by-line reading, and they cause code to be skipped, repeated, or looped over. They mainly use Boolean values and logic statements to do this, and the three most common types of control statements are the if statement, for loop, and while loop. Today we're going to be covering the first one of these, which is the if statement. So the if statement. The if statement goes in the format of if condition statements. So how it works is that this condition must be a logic statement that can evaluate to either true or false. If the condition is true, then the statements in this block of code are executed. If it's false, then nothing happens. This entire block of code is skipped. So here's an example of how it works. So we're saying if, then the condition in the parentheses is a logical expression that can be evaluated either true or false. So 7 is greater than 5. What we're going to do is we're going to check if, and we're going to, if this is true, we're going to print out success. So this is true. 7 is obviously greater than 5. So when the compiler comes to this statement, it'll print out success. However, if we flip the sign and we're checking if 7 is less than 5, which it obviously is not, the compiler gets to this, it checks that 7 is less than 5, which is not, its entire block of code is skipped. So let's take a little look at how this works. So let's make an if statement. So if, then our parentheses, we're going to do a condition. Let's just say we're going to do 10 is equal to 10. So, which is obviously going to be true. Now we open our block of code. Now the statements we want to execute are going to be put in here. So we're going to print out, let's just print out success, just like we did in the slideshow. So print out success, we're going to run it, and it evaluates to true. So the compiler gets the if statement, sees that the condition in the parentheses is true because 10 equals 10, goes into the block of code, executes the statement, and success gets printed out. However, if we were to change this to 10 doesn't equal 10, we run this, and nothing happens. Nothing gets printed out because this is false, and this entire block of code gets skipped. We can also use if statements in conjunction with Boolean variables. So let's say we have a Boolean variable, Boolean my bool equals true. Now we make the condition of the if statement my bool, and it'll be executed and success will be printed out. This is because my bool is essentially a logic statement in of itself that evaluates to true. So in the condition, you don't necessarily have to compare two values. All you have to do is put a expression or a statement in there that's going to evaluate to either true or false. So if we make this false, what's going to happen is that it's executed, and obviously nothing happened, nothing printed out, because even though this variable is initialized, it's false, so the entire if block gets skipped, and then nothing else happens in the program. So you can use either logic statements or Boolean variables as your condition in the if statement to determine whether you want the statements in the block to be executed. So, alright, so there's also something you can add onto the if statement called the else clause. So the else clause is, let me see if I can hide this. Hold on. Alright, so the else clause is a statement that is a little block of code you add on to the end of your if statement, and so it's basically giving the statement something to do if this is false. So right now in the standard if statement, if this condition is false, the entire thing is skipped, nothing happens. But with the if else statement, if the condition is false, the blocks of the statements in the block of the if statement are still not going to be executed, but then the statements in the else block are going to be executed. So basically, how this works is you're going to have the same if statement. After that, you do else another block of code, and there's just statements in there. When the condition is true, this if statement is executed. If it's false, the if condition gets bypassed, and the statements in the else block get executed. Also, when the condition is true here, the else block gets bypassed. So only one of these blocks get executed based on whether it's true or false. So let's make an else block. So we have our if statement here. We do else, new block of code, and we're gonna print out. Let's say print out else. And we're going to make this print out if. So now we're going to know, based on what's printed out, whether it's executing the statements in the if or else block. So when we make the condition variable true, it's going to print out if. Now this is because this is true, so when the if statement comes to evaluate this, it gets evaluated true, the if statements are executed, and the else block is bypassed. However, if we set this equal to false, we run it, and else is going to be printed out. Because the if statement gets evaluated false, the if block is bypassed, and the else statements are true. So you can basically think of this is that if this is true, we want this executed, else we want this executed. There's one last thing that branches off the if statement and if else statement, and this is the if else if ladder. Now the if else if ladder is essentially a ladder of if else statements that keeps going until a condition is met. That ladder is then executed once the condition is met, and if no conditions are met, there's a default else statement that is executed. So how it works is that the compiler enters the ladder. It sees if this condition is true, statements are executed. If that's not true, then it goes to the next condition in the ladder. Else, if this condition is true, these statements are executed. You can have essentially an infinite number of these sort of ladder elements until you reach your last element, which is just an else statement, and saying that if none of this is true, none of these conditions are met, we're going to print out this. This is our default. This, the else block is optional. You don't have to have it, but it's highly recommended that you have it. So let's test out this if else statement. So let's just kind of clear out what we have here right now, so it's easier to see. So let's see. How about we have int var1 equals 10, int var2 equals 5. So what we're going to do now is remember if else statement. So first, if condition, we're going to see if var1 is greater than var2, let's print out system.out. Guys, gotta remember this print command. Oops. Print out greater. Now, let's make our first ladder element. So else if var1 is equal to var2, we're gonna print out equals. Now, if it's not greater than, if it's not equal to, that only means it can be less than. That's our only option left. So that means our default can be in our else block. We're gonna print out less than. So when it executes, it's gonna first evaluate whether var1 is greater than var2 and 10 is greater than 5. So this is true. So the if statement is going to be evaluated as true. It's then going to print out the greater than statement, and after that, this entire if else if ladder is going to be the rest of the ladder is going to be bypassed, and it's going to be left, and the next thing is going to be executed. However, there is nothing left in this program, So when we run this, it's going to print out greater. However, if we change this to var1 equals 5 as well, now the first statement is going to be false because var5 is not greater than 5, so this is going to be bypassed. We're going to go into the first ladder element, and we're just going to check that 5 equals 5, which is true, meaning that the equals is going to be printed out. The rest of the ladder isn't bypassed. The program ends. So what's printed out is equals. The same thing happens with less than. Prints out less than. So that's it for today. Next time we're going to be covering the for loop. As always, you can practice on our website. Please subscribe and follow our Twitter to stay updated. And that's it for today. We'll see you in the next video. We're going to learn about the for loop, and it's going to be a blast.